Hi, I'm Stu Kagan, and welcome to Born Scrappy, the podcast for scrap metal exporters and traders. Join me in conversation with some of the most experienced traders and operators that have helped shape this incredible industry. In today's episode, I'm joined by Harry Seale. Harry is the CEO at Atlas Commodities. He's also a board member of the BIR and BMRA. Atlas was recently awarded the seventh fastest growing private company in the UK and is doing well over 1 million tons per year. In today's episode, we talk about challenging the status quo, how to win a big fish, choosing your capital partners, paying is the best way to learn, and so much more. So let's get into it with Harry. But first, intro. Hey, Harry. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Stu. How are you?
Yeah, I'm awesome. Early morning here at the moment. You're sitting in beautiful Switzerland, I hear.
I
What's
am,
happening there?
yes. Yeah, not much. There's not a lot of snow. So, yeah, more work than play at the moment. But
Right. So the family are sitting around somewhere wishing there was snow, and you're dealing with what's happening in the yards.
yeah, it's half of the course.
Story of all of our lives,
Yeah.
right? Even if there
Yeah.
was snow, sometimes you would still just be dealing with what's happening in the yards.
AirPods are the worst invention ever. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, wherever we are, man, that's where it's happening. Um, Harry, you've had some cool things happening at Atlas Commodities for a while now. You've won some really cool awards. You recently have been put on the Ferris board at the BIR. I know you're a
Mm.
board member of the British Metal Recyclers Association.
Mhm.
So you play a really large role in this industry. Can you tell us how you got involved in the industry and kind of what the journey's been like so far?
Yeah, yeah. I came out of school, sort of not really sure what to do at 18 after my A levels. I was taking a year off from going to university, intended to go traveling, went traveling, came back, found myself in need of a job. So I applied at the time to a metal recycling company. They were running a trainee graduate program. So, yeah, following in my father's footsteps, he was the commercial director of EMR in the UK. I started there at 5 o'clock in the mornings, cleaning out the shears, depolluting cars, and the like. And I sort of transitioned through the company into a more commercial role after 6 or 7 years of operational management roles. So yeah, it's a good grounding, I would say, in scrap, all things scrap.
I mean, I'd say it's the best form of grounding, right? I did something very similar at 18 years old, joined a scrap metal company. And and although it was so tough at the time, I look back, my hours were mad. I
Yeah,
didn't really get weekends. I kind of was let off to go play rugby matches on a Saturday and then kind of had to shoot back to the yard.
yeah,
But it wouldn't change a thing, right? I mean, you
yeah.
couldn't be where you are now if you hadn't done that. Am I right?
No, categoric. The best sort of work life
Mm,
experience you could have.
yeah,
Working
yeah.
for a good company as well really helps.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. Talk us through this meteoric rise of Atlas Commodities over the last few years. Talk me through the journey. What sort of volumes are we talking about? How rapid has this growth been?
yeah, well, we've Atlas Commodities was going before I started. It was my business partner Mark Robertson who started the firm in 2014. He brought me on in 2020 to really put our heads together and go for it. And sort of since that time, we work really well together. And yeah, we're doing all right. We're the new boys on the block. Uh, we're taking a little bit of market share, and we're having fun at the same time. So that's what it's all about, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. You're not working when you're having fun, right? It's
Yeah,
uh,
no,
it's amazing.
it doesn't feel like a job. We're
Mm,
doing again. We've got a we started out as a trading entity. My background is primarily sales onto the Indian subcontinent, Far East Asia, ferrous scrap. So that's what, we could immediately add some value to a lot of smaller and medium-sized businesses in the UK. We started buying their material, trading it, not touching it physically. It was going in containers, in short sea vessels into European markets or North African markets. And from there, we sort of transitioned into, having our own premises, our own sites. And, hopefully this year we'll do about 1.2 million tons. So,
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
yeah.
That's incredible growth in a really short period. I mean, I've been watching just on social media and on LinkedIn, and I see the awards come in. I realize, well, hold on, this has got to be a real player now. And then you talk about those sort of volumes. You're doing probably a couple of bulk vessels a month then. And yeah, it seems to be absolutely flying. So that's awesome. And that's why, Harry, like I've been pushing to get you on here because there's a lot of people that listen to this who are, small to medium sized recyclers and have these ambitions. And I think listening to somebody like you, who's doing it at the moment, I don't want to say has done it. It's like you're doing it. You're on the journey. It's such a good time to hear from you. I mean, last week we heard from George Adams, who's been on this journey for 40 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's just incredible. But you're on a journey at an earlier stage, and it's really exciting to speak to you at the moment with that. So, talk us through a day in the life of Harry Seale at the moment. Like, are you a 5 a.m. guy, a 3 a.m. guy? Do you get up at 10 a.m.? Like, do you have coffee, no coffee? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, no. 5:24 a.m. My alarm
Got
clock
you.
every day in, day out. Um, yeah, a coffee, reading the Financial Times, understanding what's happening with the market, speaking to our customers. We've got a couple of guys on the ground in India and Thailand. We've got an office in Thailand and an office in North India as well. So speaking to them, catching up with what's going on. No 2 days are the same, to be honest. Whether you're looking to buy some material, sell a cargo, renegotiate a formula, or you're in a crane loading a ship. We do it
Yeah.
all. Uh,
It's your 524 is the same every day. And then
yeah,
it depends on what's on your phone when you wake up, right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like
It
who's
really is.
messaged you, who needs what? Like what's going on?
I put it in order of priority and get on with it. But yeah, I work quite well like that. I think I've got ADHD and some form of Asperger's, so I'm on 100
You,
things at once, and I quite like it like that. I like to be busy. So
you and Elon Musk, so don't worry, you're in good company, mate. You'll be okay. Um, Talk us through. You obviously, you wake up and you've got your Indian guys that have been on the go for a few hours. You're in the UK. Obviously, that happens with the time zone. So there's obviously a lot of trading that happens. You've been on the commercial side for a long time. So can you talk me through a kind of pivotal trade experience that you've had and one that's kind of given you some huge learnings that set you up and make sure that you stick to certain rules within the
yeah.
company?
Well, we had again starting out. You do things a bit differently, and you put your own spin on things. You pay to learn, I will say, in this industry because we've made our fair share of mistakes. Probably one of the most pivotal, or the ones I really learned something from, cost us a fair few quid. It was sailing some material into India past a due date for payment. It'll be all right. We know these guys. We've done business with them before. Um, yeah, let's just say it didn't go so well. The cargo gets to India, and I think about 4 days before it arrives at the discharge port, the shipping line has to file something called an IGM, International General Manifest. That was filed in the buyer's name, and it makes it really hard then to sell it elsewhere. They never paid for the material. We did have a 25% deposit, but you need something called a no objection certificate in India to take this cargo back and effectively sell it to someone else. They can't release the cargo, but at the same time, demurrage is accruing, key rent. And
And it's a
basically,
CIF sale. So
yeah,
you're just so we can go through into the weeds a bit. You all those costs are now for your account. So they now have the ability to negotiate from a point of power or
yeah, I think
position of
that's
power
fair to
because you're
say.
accruing all this demurrage costs. Okay, I'm just trying to, yeah, so we're all on the same page. So it arrives on the other side, demurrage is accruing.
Yeah,
They say, well, we don't really want this material anymore.
yeah, we don't want the material, but we won't give you the no objection certificate unless you give us our 25% back. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And
we
has the
ended up
market subsequently dropped, I'm guessing?
as a
And that's
market.
what's
It
kind
was a
of brought this
market
on?
claim. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
So what how did you get through that?
we just paid. That's all you can do in those
So
circumstances. Cut your
did you pay
losses,
the 25% back and then
paid it
pay
back.
your demurrage that you've had and taken the material away? So
Yeah,
not only have you paid any sort of demurrage cost, you've given back the 25% and you've lost on the value of the material because you now have to sell it in a new market, which is
yeah,
much lower.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that
Wasn't
is, yeah,
wasn't a great experience.
very similar to 2008
Yeah,
crash. We had a lot of material on the water to China.
yeah,
They did stuff very similar, except we didn't even have any deposits. They just wouldn't pick up the containers at the port. They're like, no, no, thank you. We don't want it anymore. We're
yeah,
like, but here's our contract. They were like, well, good luck fighting us on it. Right. And that was 2008 crash. So I'm guessing it wasn't necessarily 2008, but it was any sort of time the market crashes or comes off significantly.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about having those sort of risks. So, what did you implement since then? How have you made sure that that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, we track the IGMs now, the filing dates, and we
Mm,
divert the cargo before that date. Basically, we take
right.
the deposits if we need to, assuming the market is negative, to cover the diversion costs, and yeah, we don't let it go that far.
So that's really clever. That's incredible learning. The fact that once it lands on the other side and those documents are in place, you can't take it away. You
Yeah,
can't just remove it and think I've got that 25% deposit. So ensure you've either been paid in full before the ship docks,
yeah,
right? Make sure that the paperwork isn't even submitted in that way so that they have ownership of the goods or
hmm
control of the goods, we should say.
hmm
Um, make sure that's all done or make sure you've been paid, but get your ducks in a row early on. Don't just think it'll all be okay when it arrives at that port.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
bit of a blasé attitude, and I should
Yeah.
have known better, but you live and
But
learn.
hey, school fees, man. I tell you what, you won't make that mistake again. And
Yeah,
it's only when it really costs you that you learn
yeah,
that well,
yeah,
right? I mean, I've got young kids, and it's like, my wife will laugh at this. But the other day, my son didn't take his PE bag, his sports bag, with him to school,
yeah,
and my wife thinks that's my fault. I'm like, well, he's not going to make that mistake again. His bag was packed at the front door. He knows now he doesn't get to play sport at school, which he loves so much, if he forgets his bag. So the only way he's going to learn to always remember his bag is to get to school without it. And when all his friends are playing sports, he can't. So he's suffering, and now he's learned to make sure he takes his bag. Simple kind of analogy, but yeah, I think we've got to learn through those really
yeah,
tough times. And no doubt, Harry, it was super hectic at the time. Like
yeah,
when you were going through it, like
yeah.
it's easy to look back now and like, yeah, I stuffed up.
Laugh about
You know,
it.
I should do better. Yeah. But yeah, at the time that would have been really, really hard. Talking about moving your material, you've got Thailand offices, you've got people obviously sitting in India. We
Mhm.
were talking about that material on the water. What's the most important factor that influences who you sell your material to? Right? Are we saying it's is it only pricing? Is it relationships? Is it markets? How do you
Yeah,
decide that?
I think it's relativity of markets. It's relationships and reputation. Our whole industry is founded on your name being your bond, I suppose. So
Mm,
yeah, that's an important part of it. My job historically in sales means I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of the mills and the owners of the mills across the world directly, and
mm.
generally you're in good stead there, and you go with your gut feel. It's price is obviously important, but that's not outright as such. It can come from the way you ship the cargo, economies of scale in shipping bigger vessels as opposed to single containers. That lots of different factors. But for me, relationship and
Yeah.
dealing with customers that have integrity.
Relationships are absolutely key. I think it's trickier when you're smaller and don't have the experience you have from selling massive amounts of material and selling them to the end users and selling them, dealing sometimes right with the top. So you know the reputation, you know the standard that is set from the top. When you're more small to medium, I think the struggle is, I don't have necessarily the relationship with those people. How do I trust those people? That often plays a big part and isn't as simple as that. So yeah, it's something that I think all small to medium guys are playing with on a daily basis, right? Like, who do I sell to? Do I just go based on price? I mean, if I don't get paid, the price isn't important, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Do you always get multiple bids on anything? I mean, there's something conversation I've been having with a few people. Some people are very lax and they're like, you know what, I can trust this guy. He always gives me the best price. It's not the way I've ever done anything, but I have heard that lately. What is your way of offering out material?
Yeah, I can, depending on the type of material we're selling. Yeah, we have an idea in mind. I'd say 6, 7 times out of 10, it's us who are putting forward our price aspirations, and it starts a pretty standard negotiation. Yeah, we don't necessarily go and get 3 quotes before we sell it, and we're not very rigid like that. We're a relatively small, very nimble sort of. I'd say we're an agile operator, so we want to do easy business with people we know, people we trust, and move on and do another business. So time is money for us, and we're a small team. We don't want problematic cargo shipments. It's not rocket science. We're just trying to sell some scrap.
Yeah, it's quite interesting though. That is a different take. So I would say the majority of people I speak to, 9 out of 10 times they want a price first. You're
Okay.
saying 6 or 7 out of 10, you're
Yeah.
giving away. We're not talking bulk vessels though.
Yeah.
You see, I think when you talk bulk, I used to sell 3 vessels a month when I was in South Africa. When you're talking about it's quite easy to know what the price is that you want and to
Yeah.
start with, hey, look, I'm looking at 425, like whatever
Yeah.
it might be. Like I'm looking for that price, and that you're going to start $10, $15 above what you think you're going to end on, and they know the same, so you're going to meet in the middle. Bulk, I think, is a different animal. It's a lot easier to know what price you want. You've been
Yeah.
buying against the price. You know what the price is in the market. So bulk is different. I think when you talk about containerized ferrous sales or non-ferrous, you've got a lot more kind of auctioning the material where you're sending it out to 5 buyers, WhatsApp messaging, hey, what's the price in your area? What price
Yeah.
can you give me for the Taint Tabor or Birch
Yeah.
Cliff, whatever it might be? And it's ones and twos. When it's bulk and you're buying a whole month or half the month for one
Yeah.
vessel. And you do a lot of homework, right? You wake up, you read the Financial Times, you know what the market's doing.
Yeah. I think for us as well, we have this trading business which buys from UK yards and sells it directly to end consumers. So a lot of our conversations are based around the aspirations of that yard for that 2,000 ton of plate and girder, or for that 5,000 ton of 4C automotive bales. And we take our costs, we put on our margin aspirations, and we field it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. I wanted to ask you questions about your buying strategy. So you spoke about all the grades that you're looking to buy. And can you explain a little bit how you buy that material? So are you relying on, is it purely pricing? Are we talking, have you got marketing out there? Is there a customer experience that you excel at? Do you have buyers on the road? Talk me through how you
Yeah,
guys go out and source the material.
it's a bit of all of that sort of formed into one. So what our business has done quite successfully is we do things differently. Is open up the market a bit. It's Atlas is based on transparency. So whereas the UK deep sea market certainly has historically been sort of shrouded in secrecy, we've made that very simple for everyone to understand. This is what 425 means in Turkey today. And
Mm.
this is our freight. This is our margin.
Wow, that's
Would you
super
like to sell us?
transparent.
Yeah, it's very transparent, but it's also been met quite positively. We do a lot of our business, probably about 50%, on a fixed contract basis. So we service industrial accounts, industry, basically. We've long-term frame contracts against various indices that are published monthly, whether Platts, SBB, or Argus. Um, I favour that type of business because you can plan. You've got your base tons, you know they're coming into your yards, you know what your cost is up ahead, rather than relying on spot business, assuming you're always competitive.
Well,
Um,
industry business is the best. I mean, it's amazing because it
yeah,
just ticks over. You're not fighting on a weekly basis to try and make
yeah,
sure it comes into your yard versus somebody's. You've
yeah.
got this base volume. I have one question, and it just might be that I'm a scrap nerd, and I used to have a lot of these. Do
Okay.
you, when you set up your pricing on a formula, do you have it as a percentage? And then do you actually show the breakdown to them? Would you say minus transport collected, minus handling, minus that, or is it just a lump sum minus all costs, which include my margin?
Yeah. Again, we
Well,
go as
sorry, is
far
it a
as
percentage which includes all of that actually?
no.
Sorry.
We break it down. So that is the difference in our approach, if you like, is we say this is what it costs us to collect your material. We're trying to save costs. Our whole business and why we've done quite well in the UK is about cutting unnecessary cost and
Mm.
challenging the status quo. Because it was collected here and went here for the last 7 years. That's not the best way. So we've been quite successful by putting people on sites, that production facilities that generate scrap. Caterpillar's 27 production facilities in the UK. We do them. We do the largest scrap contract there is in the UK today, which is 7 of Tata Steel's downstream mills. And again, that is a bespoke solution to say, hey, it doesn't make a lot of sense to send that there. That costs $25. Then bail it's $20. Then send it here. It's another 15, and put it on a ship. Another 10. We'll put a person on site. We'll load containers, and it costs us 15. So that invariably allows us to pay a better price for it, sell it at a fair price as well. So both sets of our buyers are happy, and we've got a decent margin in between because we've made some efficiencies.
And your margin's always known,
Yeah,
which is great because you're locking it in against a formula, so
yeah.
you know what that margin is.
As
Look,
long as the indices are accurate.
yeah, exactly right. So that's where you got to be. And have you ever had to go back to your supplier and say, "I've had to do this. Sorry, look, the indices, lagging.
Yeah,
This is what we're actually selling in the market at the moment. I have to." And how has that
yeah.
been dealt with by you guys?
They're difficult conversations, but I'm sure every guy sitting in our seats has had them in the past.
Yeah.
You go into something with the best intent, but ultimately it's got to be sustainable for all parties.
Hmm.
And I think as long as you show it in a fair and a representative way, generally we've not found too much. What's the
No,
right word?
no
Um,
pushback yet.
Pushback. Yeah,
You've got some really good traction, so that's amazing. Now, have you got full time reps on the road? Have you got people that are
yeah.
servicing these relationships?
We've got 5 guys in the UK, and myself that does a little bit. And yeah, they have their own accounts, their own customers that they deal with. It works well. That's more spot
Mm.
business, but yeah, it's
Okay, but then who
exciting.
looks after the relationships of the big accounts? So you've got, I'm guessing, account executives that are looking after those relationships.
Yeah, again, we're a relatively small company. There's 62 people in Atlas, which is not a lot compared to some
No.
of the bigger competitors.
Mm.
So we do a lot ourselves as well.
Yeah. Well, it's great if you can manage those relationships, right? If
Yeah.
they core to your business and you're handling them as the CEO,
Mm.
there's a few reasons why that's really good. One is you're on top of it all the time.
Yeah.
Two is I think it's harder for your client to leave if he's dealing with the CEO. They feel a lot more respected and appreciated as well. I want to just double click on one thing quickly, and that is I used to call my reps consultants, because what you just explained to me is you're going into, and this is probably really good for people to understand, you're going into people's businesses and you're saying, I'm going to pay you more money for your scrap, but I'm not just going to pay you because the value is higher or I'm going to make less margin. I'm going to identify efficiencies in the process for you. So initially, you don't just walk in and go, $425 is what I'm going to pay you. You walk in, you go, well, let me see how you're doing it at the moment. Do we need to invest in a baler on site to reduce your cost per ton to get it to the port? Do we need to put 3 people on your site, whatever it might be, some equipment, whatever? And once you do that, then you go and show them the saving. Am I right that that's kind of how you treat them?
Exactly right. That is our business.
Yeah. You can't necessarily just go hire a salesperson from a coffee shop.
No.
I say that because I used to hire baristas to go and do a lot of my customer facing stuff. They were always brilliant at that. But you can't hire them to go into industry and identify cost savings.
Yeah, no, again, we're fortunate being a relatively small business today that, we can hand pick the right people with experience, the caliber that we want. So
Harry, if you're doing all of this, right? Because what I'm picking up is you do a lot of that yourself. You need you or senior management team that goes in and helps on this consulting, looking for the opportunities, because you can't just go and hire somebody off the street to do that. That you must rely on a lot of data for a lot of other sides of your business, or a lot of impactful or important parts of your business. What sort of data do you get? You're looking at inventories, or you're looking at sales per day, or purchases per day. What do you look at?
Inventory, stocks, incoming scrap reports, landed weights, landed costs, again, auxiliary costs, haulage, a bit of everything summarized in a way that I can even understand it. And we're not a massively data focused business. Just a case for us of laying out, what our costs are versus what we're buying the material for versus what we're selling it for. It's and identifying in somewhere in the middle some cost saving opportunity, and hopefully making a pound.
And where does that information come from? Do you have an admin team that's sending it to you? Have you got a Power BI system, or what do you use to
BI.
put on?
We've got a back office in Dubai as well that generates a lot of this information for us. So,
and that's what I'm getting at. It doesn't just fall out the sky, right?
No,
you are using data, but it's having to be pushed to you. Somebody or some systems are putting it together so that you can just look at a dashboard and go, here's some issues, or here's what's going really well. I need to get a little bit more into the weeds on this because my inventory is too high, or my costs are too high on that commodity, or whatever it might be.
Come across it all.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, small team, 60 odd people. You must have, first of all, you've probably got absolute weapons out there. So you've got some great people on your team. How do you ensure they don't disappear? And by disappear, I don't mean fall into the ship. I mean, how do you make sure that your opposition don't take them, right? You've got massive key man risk or key person risk in this industry. How do you deal with that?
You look after your people is the very short answer. You make them not want to go anywhere else. And that's easy to do as a relatively small operator that's not confined by lots of processes and pay structures and incentive schemes. It's the people who work at Atlas. I'd like to think they do very well and they enjoy their job. That they've got to. What's the point in coming to work if you don't enjoy it? It's it's fun at the moment, and I would like to think every man and lady at Atlas would say the same.
So you're saying one of the main, key thing there is culture is coming across.
Yeah,
that the
absolutely.
team enjoy themselves.
Yeah, they feel appreciated for the work they do and content at the end of the day. They work hard, bloody hard. Yeah, a very loyal team. which
Is
is,
there, have you got a bonus structure, an incentive structure? How do you make sure
yeah,
these people stay?
yeah. We have monthly bonuses, so we do something again quite different. In the UK with our traders, for example, reps, as you would say, they they're on a competitive base salary. Over and above that, 8% of whatever they make for the company, they keep every month on a monthly basis. Whether it's not 3 years down the line, it's not once a year at Christmas. You tell me, you come and sit in front of me and report what you've made by doing that trade, this trade, at the end of each month, and I'll go through line by line the cost with you. Yep, yep, yep. No, that one's had a claim. This is your
Yeah.
this is your number. And again, our back office and support functions that allow the traders to do what they're doing, they take 2% as well. So overall,
Mm,
there's a pretty good bonus structure for our staff. But I strongly believe that the whole team should do well if the business is doing well. So
mm.
yeah.
Okay, so salespeople, which is what your traders
Mhm,
are a different animal to everybody else.
mhm,
They like the short-term incentives. That 8% sounds fantastic. I've tried to do something very similar.
mhm,
We had 4,200 people in South Africa,
mhm.
75 buyers at a stage. And there's many angles I could go with my next few questions, so I'm not going to go everywhere. But
Okay.
uh, give me tell me you've had an argument with somebody where they've been adamant that they've made this profit, but you've had
Yeah.
to say to them, but you didn't, because there might have been a sales price you were using, but we actually ended up selling it for that or
Yeah.
something.
Again, you can imagine as a trading entity, we've probably got uh, 30,000 ton of material on the water at any one time in containers. So we do have to do a bit of juggling around with letters of credit or documentation, or switch this cargo to this buyer because he's not paid yet, to keep us safe and protected. So all of a sudden, they bought this material back to back on a trade, thought they were locking in a $20 margin, turns out to lose $10, and because the material's been diverted or something like that. You have those arguments, but rough with the smooth. And
Yeah,
overall,
yeah,
and over the course of time, I think it's six and two threes.
yeah, yeah. I think I just wanted to touch on it because I've had so many of those discussions over the years, and um, I've never found the perfect incentive system that everybody was really happy with, and you never had a question about it.
Yeah,
I think our industry doesn't lend itself to that. However, if you have an open policy where you can have the conversation and
yeah,
explain, both parties explain. So I
yeah,
explain why I want the 8% and that's the value, and you explain why you don't think, and we come. It's kind of like how our quality works in general. Like
yeah,
it's gray.
yeah,
HMS arrives on the other side. Somebody's going to tell you why there's 2% impurities. You're going to say it's 1%, and you're going to have the discussion. I mean, I've had that. That's kind of how I see traders and their incentives
yeah,
over so many years.
yeah. I think it's fair.
Yeah. And okay, so let's understand, how do you see technology impacting the industry in the near future? And do you use a lot of technology? You mentioned Power BI. That's something, right?
Mhm,
It's the start of
mhm.
something. It's a great dashboard. I used it. It feeds in from all the other systems. What else would you think there is, or what are you using?
I think there's more technological advances to be made in processing, to be honest. If you look at the way our industry is going in the UK and in Europe, we're all transitioning to lower carbon steel making, from blast furnace to electric arc steelmaking, and that is going to require a hell of a lot more higher quality scrap. So further segregation, that's where money needs to be spent in processing solutions to deliver the right quality to make flat products with electric arcs. Uh,
And I think it's looking really good. I mean, I look at the trajectory of that. People are putting a lot of capital into that at the moment, and it's
yeah,
really exciting. There's a lot of capital going into green steel,
yeah.
and making sure that we do things better for the future. So yeah, I totally agree. I think there will be a huge impact of that in the
Mm,
industry.
mm.
Yeah,
And I think in the UK, especially with all the change that's going on recently, being in the press, it's all to play for in the next 5 years. So
absolutely, 100%. I heard a great saying the other day. I forgotten what it was exactly, but basically, in turmoil, there's opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So
Through
right now, people,
adversity. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Everybody's looking at it going, oh, what are they going to do? And ban exports. They find the opportunity
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah.
right? Find that opportunity in that storm. And if you do, that's where you come out on top.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
100%.
So we speak about capital investing in that sort of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me how you've used capital because you can't have the sort of growth that you've had without investing money. Is it the capital you've got? Talk me through what you've spent it on. Maybe you don't have to go. We don't have to do a full capex and go through every single line item. But and have you guys relied on loans? Is it equity? Is there a lot of trade finance? What do you guys do to set up your
Yeah,
business?
we've got a trade finance facility, but the majority of our finance, to be honest, comes from our partners. So we partnered up with a company you'll probably be quite familiar with, South African. It's Anglo American PLC.
Oh,
Uh,
that's small. That small like cafe on the corner, right?
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. So I think something like 40 billion turnover
Yeah,
last year.
yeah, massive, massive.
The crazy numbers, but they've
Mm,
supported our journey, and they've got an intent to diversify into urban mining, as they call it, as opposed to real mining of virgin resources, because they see the market shifting towards a greener, more environmentally friendly picture. Uh,
mm.
they've been really supportive, and they sort of given us the financial firepower that we don't have ourselves to have a ruckus. It's
But you can't. Like, I look at any company on a trajectory like yours. I had something similar, not to your level, but when I started my company in New Zealand, you have to bring on the right capital structure
partners.
to
Yeah.
have that, right? So the right point, whether it's for trade, just for trade finance, the fact that you
Mhm.
want to be able to pay up front and get paid at a later stage in order to optimize your margin as well as be able to compete against the big behemoths in our industry.
Mhm. Mhm.
You have to have that partner. So you got Anglo that helps you. Do they then do your trade? They do everything for you. Your trade
No, they do
finance.
all of our inventory stocking. So
Mm,
we've gone from being this container trader to buying a few short sea cargoes and selling them, and we're self financing that. We currently have a sort of RCF facility, which is trade finance receivables. Anglo do our inventory. So to really grow the business, we've now opened our Newport deep sea facility. We can load up to 38,000 ton cargoes there, straight into Turkey or the Indian sub or Asia if the market permits. Um, they finance that stock for us, which has enabled us to do that much sooner than we otherwise would have been able to. So it's a
absolutely.
really good partnership, and yeah, I'm looking forward to what's to come.
And would that is there capital as well? Do they invest in assets for you? I mean, I don't know if you've got a lot of trucks on the road,
Yeah,
diggers and material handlers.
there's a structure there to allow for it. We haven't used it.
Okay.
We sort of just ploughing back the proceeds and earnings into the business, as you do in this industry. You're trying to fuel your own growth. Uh,
Yeah, and if you can, that's phenomenal, right? You'll be on an amazing trajectory like you guys are. And I am excited to see what comes next. So no doubt Atlas is doing some exciting things. Talk me through an equipment purchase, right? So your best or your worst equipment purchase, something you've either made a terrible mistake or something that has fueled you into the future. Don't give me brands if it's a bad story. I don't want to know that you bought some piece of equipment from so and so and it was terrible. This isn't a name and shame.
yeah.
Is there any sort of equipment that's had a massive effect on you?
Again, for us, we weren't a physical player. So we were a trading entity. We never touched the material. So for us to venture into, right, we've got to have some cranes. We've got to open our own scrapyard. It was a scary prospect. And we bought some shit along the way. Am I allowed to say shit? We bought some,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You're allowed to say
we,
shit.
yeah, we bought some dogs along the way. But
Mm.
I think that's taught us you buy it once and you buy it properly. So we tend to now buy new machinery, most of which is German. Um, and yeah, it's been good so far. The thing that really sets them apart is the service. We again don't have the same assets as our giant competitors that have been going for the last 50 years. So they need to work. We can't afford downtime. So
Yeah.
the backup service, and when we have big vessels that are at $25,000 a day, we have someone there just in case a crane goes down, because it affects our load rate and it costs us money.
Man, I think a lot of people don't know the pressure of doing a bulk
Yeah.
vessel. Like you have a digger go down, all of a sudden there is a problem, right? If
Yeah.
that load rate drops,
Yeah.
it can drop so small but have such a massive effect financially. It's crazy. You've got to
Yeah.
be on top of it like 100% every step of the way, working, I don't know, 18-hour shifts. Like not talking about your staff, but you
Yeah.
probably at the port all the time, checking
Yeah.
out, how do we do this quicker, learning each time and getting better and better.
It
Um,
is. It is just a constant lesson. Yeah, you're learning
mm,
every time,
yeah,
and hopefully you improve a bit, and you keep making those improvements.
yeah.
That's all you
Yep.
can ask
You don't
for.
have a shredder. You don't have a shredder, do you?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, not at the moment. I was going to say not yet. I
Not
believe is the
yet.
answer. They say in Afrikaans, and they probably, which is South African, they say
Yeah.
probably in Dutch it's the same. Goedkoop is duurkoop. That means a good purchase is an expensive purchase.
Yeah.
I learned it the hard way. I bought a couple of Chinese balers. I bought some equipment that didn't last, a mobile shredder which didn't last. I probably had 70% downtime.
Yeah.
Like I made some mistakes when I moved to New Zealand, and yeah, I think anything I learned was buy the expensive machinery,
Yeah.
because the cost when it's down
Yeah.
is actually so much more than the
Yeah.
cost to buy a good piece of equipment.
Yeah. It's hard though to
Absolutely.
make those choices, because even I think we're looking at a crane at the moment, and a big crane, 40-meter reach. One of those is not just a mobile handler; it's a piece of port machinery, 4 or 5
Yeah,
million
yeah.
pounds, and it's scary to, without the right knowledge, get that potentially wrong. Do we go with this manufacturer or this one? Yes, if you, it's hard.
So it's quite interesting, right? I just want to touch on for a second. Who do you speak to about that? I mean, have you got mentors in the industry? Have you got people that you can reach out to? People that have, have you got a community that you speak to? Like, for
Yeah, you've got a lot of customers. Again, though, when you're getting into that size of machine, it's not a machine that there's 300 of in the UK and they're loading containers. It's specifically for loading big ships.
Mm,
So the only people you can really ask are your competitors, who aren't really gonna. Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's okay if you ask them in the US, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I'm working on something which I think might help to be able to communicate with other people around the world, like little community where you'd be able to say to somebody in the United States, "Hey, I
yeah,
see you have the following. Can you give me a reference?" Instead of just having to call them cold from
yeah, yeah,
LinkedIn, rather
yeah.
create a small community of like-minded people,
Yeah.
because I think it's really needed. You're not
There isn't
you're
enough
not
of that
competing
in our
you're not
industry.
competing with them. You're not competing with them in another area. So
Yeah,
we might as well be helping each other. Yeah, and I agree. And sorry I cut you off, but yeah, there's not enough of it in the industry. Absolutely.
yeah.
Um, who do you want to hear next on Born Scrappy?
Oh, oh. That's a difficult one. I'd like to hear from Attila, a guy called Attila. Don't know if you know him.
Met him a few times, had dinner with him and lunch with him the other day in Singapore.
Okay.
In fact, he convinced you to be on here, I believe, because I'd been asking you a lot, and then Attila said he would. Attila is the owner of Navigate Commodities,
Hmm.
where he can. In fact, I'll have him on, and he can explain it better. But he tracks stock, and he tracks the movement of pig iron, HMS,
Yeah.
all of the sort of anything that's really influencing the scrap metal prices. So. Okay,
Yeah,
so you think we should do a masterclass with Attila?
I think it would be interesting. You might have to change it from Born Scrappy to Adopted Scrappy, but
Yeah,
uh, he's very good. He understands our markets. He understands the macro economic picture
yeah,
that's driving it all, and yeah, he's doing some exciting stuff at the moment. So
he really is. And if you haven't seen them before, you really should look. I'm talking not to you, but other people now. They should really look him up and see if that business can affect just their strategy and how they run their day to day. Because I looked at his tech and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe the information using satellites that he could get on all the different ports and the tonnages and the movements. And yeah, so it's really exciting. Last thing before we go, because we're going to run out of time soon, is we'd like to get to know our guests a little bit better. So quick fire, a few questions. What's your favorite movie or TV show?
I don't watch a lot of TV. Billions, I quite like. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Axelrod.
Yeah.
Big fan as well.
Yeah.
Loved Billions. Billions is awesome. Upset it's over at the moment. Favorite book? Do you read a lot?
I read a fair bit, yeah. A book about commodity traders called The World for Sale.
Yep. Brilliant book.
Incredible book.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, loved it. My father-in-law sent it to me. My father-in-law was like, he couldn't put it down, and he's like, "Oh my God, Stu, you have to." So he got me into it. Yeah,
it was
exactly. Have you read Cold Steel? I recommended this to somebody else the other day.
No.
It's the Lakshmi Mittal story. I think you will love it.
Okay.
It's literally how he comes from working in a foundry to becoming, who you now know as Lakshmi Mittal.
Yeah.
Really good. You won't put it down. It's written like a thriller. Like it's exciting. I mean, I guess you know how it ends. He doesn't fail. He doesn't die at the end of the book, at least. So it's worth a great book, Cold Steel. Favorite place to visit?
Switzerland, to chill out and relax. Yeah.
Well, you seem to be doing a great job of chilling out and relaxing. You're on a podcast. You're watching your yards. You've got your earpods in. But I get it. That is probably more relaxing than being in the yard at the moment.
Yeah.
It was awesome having you, Harry. I've loved it. We really got a bit more into the weeds than normal. And thank you for being so open and giving us so much information. I think the listeners will love this episode. So thank you, Harry. Thanks for being with us.
All right. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
See you later.